Thunder Grunt.
Hey guys!
Bob.
Hey, Bob.
Hey everyone! I'm talking to you because I never do this. This is Writers Blockbusters, and what we do on this show is we treat the final edit of a movie like it's a script.
That's right.
That's right, guys?
Because it is.
No,
It's a last draft.
It's a last draft, and I feel like that's something we should clarify, and we're going to every episode from now on. What? Before we start, I want you guys to introduce yourselves.
I am Jimmy George. I am a script consultant and screenwriter.
I am Jamie Nash. I am a screenwriter.
And I'm Bob Rose, and I'm kind of a filmmaker and a podcaster and a whatever. And today we're going to talk about a movie that was based on a Sylvester Stallone fan poll we did.
Yes, that's right.
Right? We ran a
Yeah.
fan poll, and what were the selection? What was it? It was
Stop or my mom will shoot.
That's right.
Rhinestone
Rhinestone.
and Rambo 3.
No, it was
Yeah.
First Blood, and it was
Cliffhanger.
Cliffhanger.
and Demolition Man, and not Rocky, because we're gonna save that for.
We say we're
another
saving
one.
Rocky,
I
yeah.
don't remember what the other one. It was that forgettable.
What was it? Damn
I
it.
don't know, but this one won.
It wasn't
Cobra.
Daylight. Yeah, so
No, I don't.
it wasn't Cobra.
No.
No, it wasn't
I love
Cobra.
Daylight. Shit.
Yeah, right. Well, either way, I think healthily Demolition Man won, right?
It crushed.
Like, it crushed it.
competition.
I think it was, what was that porno? He was in porn. What do we call him these days? Porn.
He was in
No,
a porn.
Yeah, he
He
was
was
in
in
one
porn.
before his career
What?
started.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what it
before
was.
his career
I
started.
did not know that.
On the next Thunder
Demolishing Man.
Oh my God.
Right.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Right. But Demolition Man won pretty healthily.
Yeah.
And I think that's a sign of like the time, honestly, because
It's
it has
lasting. Yeah.
it has grown as a cult favorite over the years. It was
Yeah.
it was a huge hit, but it was like I feel like it's more beloved now than it ever was.
Yeah, it's picked
It's
up.
it's aged well. You know, it's kind of it predicted things that actually somewhat came true. I
Maybe
mean,
everyone just likes Taco Bell.
I was really I was really surprised by all the technological
self-driving
predictions.
cars, iPads,
Yeah.
you know, all kinds of stuff.
Video chat.
Right.
3 seashells.
Yeah.
Whatever we got.
It's amazing how that has lasted.
That is lasted.
And there's been people who have the writers have directly addressed the 3 seashells
Oh,
and stuff.
I haven't heard that.
I can read some of that.
Yes, please.
Wait, we
do.
won't talk about that right now. Jamie,
Yes.
who wrote this shit?
Who wrote this shit?
That's what it says in the outline. Who wrote this shit?
Anonymous skunk put that in the outline.
Right, yeah.
So who wrote this shit? Now I clicked off the page. There are a bunch of people that wrote this shit as I try to get to it. But yeah, it starts with, well, this isn't who started with it, but I get the feeling he gets the most credit, is Daniel Waters, who was the Heathers guy.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
And I think after Heathers, he had a ton of he did everything, because it seems like he did a lot of Joel Silver stuff too. He did The Adventures of Ford Fairlane immediately after, Hudson Hawk,
Oh.
Batman Returns. I'm sorry, those were before Demolition
Before
Man.
Demolition
Yeah.
Man.
I'm reading upside
Damn,
down.
he wrote Batman Returns. That's
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
pretty-
So,
Yeah.
so he was pretty hot
Pretty
after
good.
Heathers. Like everybody wanted that Heathers magic.
Mhm.
After he wrote that, let me click on Demolition Man just to make sure I
And
get all the
Heather's a
names. right.
Demolition Man. It's like
Mm.
great double feature.
Well, so so I think what happened was he was the rewriter. So the original writers were two guys, Peter M. Lenkov and Robert Renault. Peter M. Lemkov, if you look at his IMDb, tons of television stuff to this day. I mean, huge career. Robert Renault, not so much. Demolition Man was kind of the end all and be all. I saw an interview a while back with Peter Lenkov, and maybe if you feel free to chime in.
I don't know who that
he
is.
was the he was the guy who apparently originally came up with it. He was
Okay.
thinking of it more as like a Universal Soldier kind of movie. You
Okay,
know?
I
It's a
can
little
see
more
that.
serious.
Yeah, basically just a team up kind of thing or something. I think. I think he did come up with it because of the cryo freeze thing. I think it was around the
Okay.
time the Walt Disney stuff
Everybody
was going around.
going crazy for the cryo freeze.
So,
I always felt like Austin Powers' cryo freeze joke was based off of Demolition Man.
I
Oh,
wouldn't be
It has to be,
surprised.
right? Like it was a direct reference to Demolition Man,
it's,
like the goo.
Yeah.
It came up out of the goo,
It-
right?
And it's kind of a classic. Buck Rogers was kind of the
Yeah,
idea.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's a classic idea. But he came up with that idea, pitched it to Joel Silver. Joel Silver said, I don't get the cryo freeze or something. And I don't know if Joel, but one of his
It's just
executives
a device.
didn't
It's a
really like it.
device.
But then he wrote the script, came back later, and they saw the Universal Soldier appeal of the team up movie. And I think the original plan was Jackie Chan as the villain.
Yes,
I think I
heard
saw
that too.
Yep, that's in the
yeah.
IMDb trivia.
but
yeah.
he didn't want to be the villain or
Because
something like that.
in China, they don't like seeing people who are heroes be villains.
I see.
So they don't want to see
Okay.
Jackie
They
Chan
don't ever
as,
want to see Jackie.
as an antagonist. He is. Yeah, they don't want to see that. So
So later on, the Heathers guy was brought on, and I think he might have added some of that subversive humor side of it.
Okay.
Like he was the one that
the meta
that had it.
commentary.
The meta
yeah.
commentary.
Yeah, yeah.
And keep in mind, what's interesting about this movie, and thinking about this in the rewatch, because I saw this movie 5 times in the theater, and I don't know that I was thinking about all this stuff when I saw it back then, but this was right around that postmodernistic phase
Yeah.
that they were going through. So Last Action
Action
Hero
Hero
came
happened,
out right
yeah.
before it.
Right.
Okay.
So that it was a time when I think we were done with these action hero movies and the machine guns, and they were holding on. They were trying to figure out, like, even
The big three.
the big three.
The big
Yeah.
three were kind of like the 80s were their time, and now
Yeah.
they were trying to figure out where did Stallone, Schwarzenegger, and Willis fit
Right.
in the 90s.
And I think
and
a movie
that's
like
kinda- yeah.
Cliffhanger was one attempt for
Cliffhanger's a
Stallone.
serious
It's a
movie.
serious
with heart.
movie.
It's a heartfelt
Yeah.
movie, oddly.
It didn't.
Yeah,
It didn't.
it's really heartfelt.
It didn't feel like a muscle guy with guns movie.
No,
it was
no.
more a thriller kind of thing. It was a little
Stallone's
different.
like acting in that movie. That's not a Stallone being a silly action hero.
and
yeah.
just to give you a feel how much money. So domestically, this movie made $58 million, which doesn't seem like a ton.
But that's
ton
in
of
what
money.
year?
This was in what was it? 93.
Yeah, 58 million in 93 is a lot different.
lot,
than,
yeah.
So 58 million put it at number 18. But just to give you an example, The Last Action Hero was 50 million. So it actually made more than the big ticket of the summer or whatever they
But
call
Last
it.
Action Hero is considered
A
not
bust.
a bust because that costs way more than this. I think
It did.
Oh,
It
okay.
did.
That's,
So
Last Action Hero was advertised in space. They
yes.
spent a little more money on Last Action Hero.
Now, Demolition Man came in 18. This is the year of Jurassic Park, came number 1 at 357 million. Miss Doubtfire at 219. The Fugitive at 183. The Firm at 158.
jeez, man.
Sleepless in Seattle 126. Indecent Proposal 106. In the Line of Fire 102. Pelican
It's kind of
Brief
nuts.
100.
In my memory, I would have assumed that it would be those numbers for Demolition Man.
Yeah, much higher.
Way higher than that.
I think I don't think the numbers are here. I think it did well internationally. I read.
Okay.
Like it might have put it over the 100. It makes sense. Action movie, 2 big stars.
Yeah.
It kind of has a feel like it could be a European film.
Yeah.
I think the director might have been a European commercial director. This was his first movie,
Oh.
and
yeah.
maybe he did one other one afterwards.
Well, when you peak,
That's
right there. I mean, you already made the perfect movie. You don't need to do anything else.
And I don't have any budget numbers for
That's
this
fine.
or anything. It seems like a relatively cheap movie to me. It doesn't.
Not
seem
that
It's a mid-budget.
many.
It's a mid-budget action movie of the 90s. That's
Yeah.
not. I don't think it's anything.
Just
I was
Despite its
surprised how
sci-fi stuff.
contained some of
Very
the
contained.
action scenes were.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The action
It's
doesn't
like
get
it's
huge.
character based more than
I
it is
know.
spectacle based.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh.
Weird to say that about Demolition Man. Also, if I could derail the conversation for 1 second,
Mhm.
during this recording right now, I don't know why, I just realized that the premise of this and Austin Powers are the same fucking thing. Think about it.
They both got unfrozen.
And
Yeah.
the villain, they basically unfrozen to fight the villain that nobody could,
Mhm.
who was also frozen.
Right.
I never fucking put that together.
That's
I feel like an
idiot.
It's like Jesus. it's
You're
been
right.
Over 20
I
years.
never thought about that.
that
until
Austin
now.
Powers is a parody of
Demolition Man.
Fish Out of Water story.
Yeah, you're right.
All right. Anyway,
man out of time.
Man out of time.
Ju-
God.
just as a quick FYI.
Sorry.
No,
yeah.
no problem. since we're on this, I'm looking.
Jamie's shaking his head.
It's like, oh God, Bob, change the subject.
I'm looking at the. Well, it does have. I'm surprised it was Rob Schneider in Austin Powers. I guess not.
No, he wasn't. He was not. No.
But I'm looking at the screenplay, and the first page of it, the title page, actually has the following as participating writers: says everybody we mentioned, but then it also has Fred Dekker.
Right, and that's something I wanted to talk about because
uncredited, of course. But
one of the
Fred
things that I know Jimmy wants to talk about is the opening or the kind of awkward
The first
clunkiness
act.
of it. So the first piece of trivia on IMDb, Fred Dekker of Monster Squad and Night of the Creeps.
Night of the
fame.
so many. Yeah.
RoboCop 3.
Yeah.
Well, that's in line more with
Pre-
these.
yeah.
Yeah, right.
Predator
The
20.
Predator.
The Predator.
The
I don't
Predator.
know. I wasn't sure about a date or not.
So he did an uncredited rewrite of the script. When he was brought on, the script began in the future, and Spartan was introduced when he was brought out of suspended animation. So it started with him being unfrozen.
Wow.
Dekker suggested that the movie needs to open with a prologue set in 1996 to showcase Spartan and Phoenix in their natural environment, saying that if you don't show Kansas, Oz isn't all that special.
Ooh.
I like that quote.
Very-
That quote's great.
It's very interesting.
It's very interesting. So
Yeah.
it's apparent, I think, that the opening's a last-minute addition, and I think that reasoning is good.
Well,
But it doesn't mean it's a great opening.
it's funny that you say that. I'm going to go into it later, but the
You can jump
ending
into
is
it now.
We can
the
jump into the
ending-
opening.
Well,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
We can-
I
if
mean,
it makes sense.
Yeah.
No. I was going to talk about the ending and how it parallels the beginning. So,
Okay.
so you saying that the beginning was added last minute, it doesn't feel like it to me because it's like a direct parallel. Everything that happens.
well,
in
then
the
He
climax.
could have
could've done it right.
engineered it.
Yeah,
from
and
it.
it didn't exist
Yeah.
before.
Yeah,
that
it's
well, that
possible.
would make sense.
Yeah.
Possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, he could have totally existed before.
Okay.
I mean, Fred
No,
Dekker,
I
right? We
like-
love Fred
love Fred
Dekker.
Dekker,
Yeah,
It
so-
could have been. I mean, we're dancing here, but it could have been that the backstory was always the same, but then they
They had never shown us any evidence
Yeah,
of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
It might have
No,
actually.
I
It could have even said the backstory in the script,
Mm-hmm.
and they just were like, "Well, we got to just fill these 2 sentences. They got to become a scene.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it. They got to become
Yeah.
a scene. You can't
Yeah.
not film these.
Yeah, that's true.
right.
But no, I like the order that we've arranged things, and so I want to stick with it. I don't want to hop
Okay.
around.
Okay, well then
go
let's
to
talk about tone,
tone.
because
Yes.
I think the tone is obviously the reason why this is endured.
Yeah.
Because unlike say Cliffhanger,
I-
this is like almost borderlines on comedy at some moments.
Oh
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's the reason I responded to it so much in the '90s as well, because it wasn't just another guy with a gun sort of movie.
So
And
fresh.
It felt fresh.
Yeah.
It didn't just feel like the same thing. It definitely has that comedy feel. Like we talked about it earlier. The action sequences. There's nothing here that I would want to screen before I shot my own action sequence.
It's
really.
not like a Speed where you're like, how do they do that?
Yeah.
That's not what
Yeah.
that's not what this movie's about,
at
and I'm
all.
thankful for that.
I agree.
I don't
I
actually
agree.
want those scenes to be spectacle. I like
Right.
it being Wesley Snipes
Mhm.
and him
Yeah.
exchanging dialogue
Yeah.
while shooting at each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what
That's
I want.
this movie.
That's what this movie is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
That-
mean, there's the end fight scene with the cryo
Yeah.
things and all that, but that's kind of spectacle, I guess. But what I wanted to, but with tone, I put this in the wrong place in the outline. 'cause
That's all right. Bring it in.
It should go here. I was gonna say like the Huxley is obsessed. Her obsession with movies that are Demolition Man.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the tone of
It's
this
meta.
movie. A character in this movie is obsessed with movies that the producer of Demolition Man made.
Yeah.
Right.
like
Like she even has the posters.
she has
on
a
her wall.
Yeah.
Lethal
Lethal
Weapon
Weapon.
3
Yeah.
poster.
Yeah.
Right, Joel Silver. She's obsessed with Joel Silver action movies
Well, the
in this movie.
the meta
so-
side of it does seem like it's as much a commentary on, when we're talking about we had to put away people like him, we're really talking about those movies as well.
Right,
It's
we're
like,
putting away these old muscles and
He's-
bringing out the
Mhm.
new.
he's
It's
Yeah.
a new world now. You're old. You're out. You're
Yeah.
outdated.
he's
right.
playing kind of a goofy, not even really goofy. He plays it totally straight, but he's playing a version
Stallone.
of Stallone
Yeah.
of one of the characters he would play in another movie, but just maybe a little heightened. And
Yeah.
I think that the whole thing's kind of a commentary on she likes those movies, and now that movie character is
And
back.
if there was a
Um,
compliment to be paid to the opening, I know we're gonna get to it, but his performance in that opening segment, I think, is different than his performance when he's
agree.
unfrozen.
Yeah.
And that's a testament to Stallone. I mean, he got it. You
Yeah.
know, like he's a different character in that opening. He's the guy
Yeah.
you're talking about.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
Then,
He
in
has
this
to
one, he
learn-
has to pretty much be like the roll your eyes, you know, a man at a time. He knows it.
I can't remember when Cobra came out, but Cobra was kind of almost
way earlier.
Yeah, when that almost seemed when Stallone almost started to, and I love Cobra for what it is, but it's almost like when he started to become a parody of himself. Like he was almost
he wasn't aware how silly it was.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. He was you know chewing on the match and just the way he talked and all that stuff.
Stallone kind of had that second. I would say this almost started his second life. That kind of kept him going. Is he always was able to look at himself and be like, "Here's what I am" in his movies. I think that's
point.
right. I mean, that's what the Rocky sequels kind of ended up being, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like he could always tell.
How much influence did he have on this, you think? Like, I mean, himself, his own voice.
How can we know? But
Yeah, it's
he's the reason this movie's going to sell tickets, right?
Yeah,
Back then.
yeah.
Well, Wesley Snipes, too.
Yeah.
So both of them probably had some say, right?
Because it feels very informed by him.
You mean how much say on the script does he have?
Yeah. Stallone feels very, influential in
I
this.
did, in the IMDb trivia, it does say that Stallone has said this is a great action movie.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know what that means
I don't know
exactly, but
either.
I think he obviously embraces it, and he probably loves the stuff with Huxley and everything, like how she's a fan of stuff that he would have made.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? and everything.
And much like, I mean, I think Stallone did it before even Arnold did it, but he was kind of dipping his toe in, I could do other things like comedy and things like that.
That's
as
true.
well.
He hadn't been doing much.
So you could kind of feel...
Well, one was Stop Her, My Mom.
I think it was after this.
Was it after this?
Yeah, I think it was like 95, I want to say.
This is 6, though, right?
No, this is 3.
3.
Oh, this is 3?
Yeah.
So you could almost feel him, like, excited about, oh, this isn't the usual thing. I get to do these other scenes, too. You know, I get to do these silly scenes.
But from
fun scenes.
I think it's interesting to me to learn that stuff about the opening, because I think the opening is the tone setter, because it's in an alternate reality.
Yeah.
Like that's not a 1996 that's real. Like he's wearing a beret. The LAPD are in a completely different outfit than like police in 1996 would be wearing. Like it very much sets it. It feels like it doesn't. This is a world that doesn't exist, right? It feels like it's in a hyper reality.
If we were in 1993 watching it,
Yeah, sorry,
it's a near future that was.
It's like a RoboCop,
or I would say a Running Man, even.
yeah, Running Man type
just
of
like that.
alternate reality. But that like tells you right away that you're going to be watching something that clearly is not interested in portraying a reality that we live in. Right?
Yeah.
And so, and then, like you said, the meta, man. I mean, the meta is all over the place because we're trying to talk about tone setters, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
like,
Absolutely.
so like the one of the very first lines is a Speed reference. There, he hijacked a bus full of 30 people and blah blah blah.
Yep.
I mean, right off the gate,
right out the
we're
bat.
hearing about the quintessential 90s action movie that just happened with a male.
Well, Speed came out after this, but
No,
if it's 93,
Yeah,
Speed's 95.
wait, what?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
not.
think-
That's
Now
not a
I'm
reference.
confused.
That's not a reference, dude.
Really?
No.
It was just
Unless
coincidental.
unless the Speed script was floating around and that was some.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
not-
I know
weird.
that. The only
No.
reason I know is I knew this was Sandra Bullock's first big.
This
thing.
was
Like,
before Speed.
This was a
Dude,
year
okay,
prior.
Jimmy, what are you
No,
doing to my
no,
brain
no.
right
No,
now? I gotta check.
I looked it up. It's 94.
Right, so,
Speed's 94.
Yeah, right,
for sure.
Unless they were filming
I had no idea.
simultaneously or the script. Or
Okay,
something.
that
I'm
makes
pretty
so
sure
much
that's
sense.
That's
Shit.
hilarious that you thought it was a
Yeah,
Speed
I thought
reference.
it was a Speed reference because
It
it is
works
the
as a Speed-
scenarios. Yeah, it's a Speed. Yeah, he
It
hijacked
works
a
as a
bunch
Speed
of people
reference.
on a bus and
Actually, this is where Joel Silver got the idea. No, just,
I love
anyway.
I love the idea that Simon Phoenix did all the things that action movie villains have ever done. That's
Yeah.
an awesome
No,
idea.
know.
I
Yeah,
love
and
that.
he's the villain.
Yeah, he's the
Yeah.
villain.
Yeah, you got Simon says there's Lethal Weapon posters on the wall. Simon says, "Come on, Hal." The Hall of Violence in the museum showing all the '90s violence.
Where the phase
in
of guns.
yeah,
right. You're right.
right.
Yeah.
He says, "Excuse me, Rambo."
Yep.
Like holy shit.
Which, to be fair, there's a Rambo reference in Tango and Cash too. When Stallone
That's
says
great.
Rambo is a pussy.
Like they say shit Saved by the Bell. There's an entire scene devoted to the history of President Schwarzenegger. Say
The
hello to my little
seashells. The
friend.
seashells tone.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
talking about poop. It's Rob Schneider in a movie talking about poop. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
in a Stallone action movie.
there's
right.
something that kills me about Rob Schneider's laugh when he hears every time I hear that when he's like He doesn't know about the seashell. There's something that makes me laugh so hard about the way he delivers that. I don't know.
I won't do it on this podcast, but you
Okay.
can easily look it up, and there is a detailed description by the writers of how the seashells actually work.
I think I've seen that myself.
Yeah, there's no reason to describe
We
it.
don't have to describe
Just
that.
look it up.
It,
And
it doesn't seem like it's advanced from toilet paper, though, to be honest with you.
it seems like, from the description, it seems like it would be worse than
It seems
toilet
like
paper.
very unhygienic.
But it's way less wasteful.
Yes,
and
I
in
agree
the
with that.
in the utopian society, I guess
Yeah.
Okay.
you give that sacrifice.
It's like the Dyson Airblade. It like sprays shit everywhere, but people are like, "There's no paper
There's
here."
no paper. Right, exactly, right.
I wanted to ask you guys because I don't know the answer to this. Do you think that the audience point of view influences the tone? Because like we're in a superior position about the plot,
Right.
but we're not in the superior position about the world building. Like we're learning about the world when Sly is, but we're always ahead of him as far as like who the bad guy is, what the bad guy is doing. Like we always know what he's about to face, but we never know what he's about to face in the world. And I was wondering like what's instructive about that? Because I noticed
We
that
also have the advantage.
usually it's one way or the other. This is like this weird mix.
I was gonna say we also have an advantage of knowing it's kind of like a sci-fi world that's a whiteboard sci-fi world that
Yeah.
kind of fills in a bunch of stuff we've always asked questions about.
Okay.
I feel like that's what this movie, how it has lasted,
Yeah.
and we kind of know the stuff that's coming. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like the weird way this world works. He doesn't expect it, but I always felt like when I watched this movie, I'm like, haha, he's in a space movie now, and he's got to figure out what he's doing because we know what sci-fi movies are. He doesn't.
Yeah.
Is a character that
Okay.
has no concept of the culture.
So the
of sci-fi.
self-awareness aspect of it. Yeah.
of it being a sci-fi movie.
I would say too, there is kind of a tradition in these action movies. Like think about Die Hard, where the villain, we're let in on the villain a little bit more than we're let in. You know,
That's true.
John
So it's
McClane-
sort of like genre.
it's kind of a genre thing.
Okay.
I think if you want to kind of give the villain a star part, you know,
Yes.
you have to mix in these things where you know what the villain's plan is a little bit.
Because these were the comic book movies of their time.
Yeah.
They were.
Yeah.
Stallone is who doesn't matter what his name is. He's Stallone, and then the villain is the great actor that you bring in to be the
Right.
He's like the star. He's like the new star of the movie, and we already know what Stallone's going to do. We know what Captain America is all about.
Yeah. That's
What's
true.
the new villain?
That's
You
true.
know what I mean? Yeah.
Okay. That's a good answer.
And I guess
It's a genre thing. I didn't really put it together, but that makes sense.
yeah, and I guess it keeps some secrets that I think in the 90s I didn't even care about, but this time watching I paid more attention. Like when Wesley Snipes is like hacking the computer right off the bat,
right.
and it's almost played for laughs. I think when
But then he starts to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
That he's
yeah.
like, why do I know how to do
Yeah.
this? Right.
I'm
yeah.
possessed, he says.
Right.
And honestly, I think when I saw it in the 90s, I just thought it was a gag, like it was a spoof, like
Yeah.
winking at the camera, like we don't want to
It
figure
turns
this out.
it's completely plot based.
And
Yeah.
it's completely plot based.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's almost like a Matrix kind of thing. in
Yeah,
some ways,
exactly.
like,
I
mean,
this
they had
came
a
before
long
the
time.
Matrix.
Not
yeah.
a script thing, but I also read in the trivia I read that they actually had to ask Wesley Snipes to slow down his kicks and punches.
I saw that too.
Because the camera, he used to punch so fast and kick so fast, the cameras couldn't pick it up.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. Anyway. Yeah, but that stuff does seem like a wink, Jamie.
Yeah, it's like back then I was probably like, oh, they're just being silly. I love this. It's because especially back then.
But
it
it's a
was
clever plot.
looking-
Oh, it's really clever.
It's clever
yeah,
plot.
Yeah.
He was taught to be even worse in cryo.
Oh, I love
freeze.
it,
That's
man.
fun.
The
Yeah,
biggest
fun.
surprise about this movie years later is that it's actually a really smart movie.
Yeah, no, I
It's
know.
like-
That's what I'm saying.
like,
I
wow.
can't. Before
I
this
feel
started,
bad saying we shouldn't have, like, I love this movie, but I feel like with the poll we were all like, I can't believe we're gonna do Demolition Man
No,
on the
I
script
know.
podcast, and it is really
Yeah, I was
It's a
expecting to
thoughtful
watch
movie.
it and groan like, "Oh
Mhm.
God, we got to talk about this."
Yeah,
and we got
yeah.
no, but there's
because I've
we're
never
about to
looked at it
dive
through that
into
that lens
bunch
has never
more
come into my
stuff.
brain.
Here's a weird thing though. When I was watching it, I mean, this goes beyond the scope a little bit of our podcast. Do you think this is the type of movie that you remake? Or do you think
Mm.
now, if you made it, because we are in these times, it wouldn't be as interesting of a
I
take?
think it's one of those things where, script aside, you can't replace Stallone and Snipes. Especially, I mean, just like look at Snipes' performance. I don't want anyone else doing that.
It would be The Rock and I don't know who's
just
I-
make
involved.
it,
I think if
make a different.
I think
movie.
if once the comic book movies are exhausted, that you could do a comic book version of this, where a comic villain and a comic hero are sort of being shown to be non-relevant anymore, and then the story is like saying in the future,
It doesn't need to be Demolition Man.
Yeah, you could do a comic book version of this, because this is like a commentary on, like, we're not, like you just said, Last Action Hero has come and gone. Now what do we do with these types of movies?
We don't need to bag
As
on
I said,
Rambo.
they did kind of do a remake of it already.
Austin Powers.
Austin Powers is a remake of it.
Yeah, I could see the Danny McBride remake of this now.
Oh my gosh!
He's the Demolition Man.
Only if Stallone plays Simon Phoenix and Danny McBride plays John Spartan,
Right.
then I will watch that movie.
God.
There you go.
I want to work on that movie.
That might be the next HBO series.
Oh God. Premise delivery. I mean, I feel like we're
this
already half
movie
there.
This movie is, I mean,
The
I don't know.
whiteboard stuff. You got like
Wanna-
seashells.
I feel like we should we always assume everybody's listened to like 10 episodes of the show.
what's whiteboard mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the premise delivery, we always, we talk about it's the movie that's promised you. It's the promise of the premise. It's the one, you come to see Jurassic Park to see dinosaurs eating people.
Yes.
You don't necessarily come to it to see
the family dynamic.
the family
or
dynamics or
like
something.
anything.
So that's what we mean by the premise delivery in particular. This movie, the premise is fish out of water.
I would actually say the marketing made the premise just Snipes versus Stallone.
That-
Obviously, the poster and everything is just those two verse each other.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, no, I think you're
I
probably
always
right.
look for the what if question. So
Yeah.
I said it's about past and future colliding. And what if a rival criminal and cop imprisoned in ice for excessive violence are thought out in a future where violence doesn't exist?
Right.
That is
just say utopian future.
a utopian future.
Yeah, I think that's best. Yeah.
But it's violence free. So two violent people thrown into a situation where violence is no longer
Right.
exist. And that's the whole movie.
And
Is
that's-
an exploration of
That's
that.
what you start with your whiteboard from.
That's
and
where
when
the
we say
whiteboard
whiteboard
shows.
is, we mean the list of all the ideas you can wring out
right.
till you get blood of a premise.
Yeah, yeah.
Right,
And
and-
usually they come in a fever pitch blast of
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, think of all the ideas.
What if they
Right.
wipe their ass with
Like so-
seashells? Right.
so
That's,
say,
yeah, right.
what
that
is-
one might come deeper. on this.
That's the first one, Jamie. You go right to
Go
toilets.
to the shit.
I mean,
Um,
sanitation's a big deal, so I want to know how
What's
any
sanitation
world.
in the future,
Right,
in
yeah.
a utopian society.
Exactly.
No, but you say, okay, so that's the premise. What does it look like? We're going to see men out of time using violence in a future with no violence. People in the civilized world suddenly experiencing violence and how they handle that.
Cops.
Right.
Even cops.
What does that look like?
Specifically, right.
Men at a time using old weapons and vehicles in the future world. Men at a time using future weapons and vehicles that they've never experienced before. Men at a time learning about life in general and what living in the future is like. And then people in the present learning about what life in the past is like. It's like every...
And you could even add in all the little specifics. What do they do for sex? How do they eat? What are the restaurants like? Who's the president?
Right.
Cursing. There's machines that actually police your cursing.
You're right.
There's a bit of a fascist element here. What does
Yeah.
fascism look like in a utopia?
Right.
That's what this is, a fascist utopia.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like what are cars like? What happens when you get in an accident with these cars? You know, there's all these little
Bob's
tiny
making
things.
the whiteboard.
Yeah.
No, but that's what that is,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you just
How does
spitball.
all these little things work? Where would they get guns? In a museum of violence.
Right.
That's a whiteboard thing.
Absolutely.
That's exactly
Yeah,
it.
Yeah.
right.
And what Bob, you can even see how your head's turning. You could take the individual pieces of it. Like you can just say, what's some interesting things about a utopia or a
Right.
peaceful society or a politically
What are the scary
correct
things?
run amok kind of society.
Yeah.
You can do those little pieces. And then you can start also saying the things Jimmy said, which was like, would we throw Rambo in there? What
Yeah.
are the things
Yeah.
that happen?
I think, and also this movie, the thing we haven't talked about yet, it asks, what about the underclass?
yeah.
People that live under the
Right.
city. You know,
How do we express?
How-
yeah.
and how does this movie does do a great job of like talking about homelessness versus class system.
Absolutely.
It even it opens up with the Dennis Leary people committing, they spray paint a sign, and then it shows that this society has a way to erase them immediately.
Yeah, like immediately.
Immediately,
They're
like
not
so they
a-
don't even exist. Gosh,
Right.
Demolition Man is way better than I think.
I
anyone gives it credit
I
for.
really was like,
Yeah.
Yeah, and so with the premise delivery, there's also ways. Okay, so we know what it looks like. What is that premise? Who are the people that inhabit that world? Like you're saying, we have a hero who's a hyper-violent cop. Right, we have a villain who's a hyper-violent criminal. We have Huxley, a bored cop who's obsessed with the past, and all the ways that you can explore that. We have Dr. Cocteau, who has created a modern society that's like he has outlawed sex and violence.
I thought a good thing to talk about too would be that we talk about on the show the Half Man all the time. This kind of goes with the premise delivery.
Yeah, sure.
But the Half Man is the character who's experienced the monster
right
in his prior life, and that would go to the actor's name. He's a great actor. You know what I'm talking about? The old man in the police station.
Yes.
Who does
Lamb is his character name.
Right, and he does the whole speech of the killer, but for John Spartan, where he talks about like we can't handle this guy. We gotta get old school.
Yeah.
Right, but in a weird way in this movie, wouldn't you consider like Sandra Bullock's character to be partly a half man because of her complete obsession?
Well, but she doesn't. I don't think
she
so.
naively, because I think she thinks it's all fun and games.
Right.
She's a naive half man.
Yeah.
She doesn't appreciate what it actually is to feel that violence.
Right. Yeah.
But she has knowledge of it beyond
That's true.
knowledge and interest in it beyond anyone in this world.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's
I
a good
I
point.
had that
No,
weird
that's
thought.
true.
Right. Yeah.
She sort of does have those elements that fit the half man without being like, I am a badass.
She knows the dangers of Simon Phoenix, but she's never experienced them.
Yeah.
And she's she's the half man that's willing to like jump into the fray and then regrets it instantly. But yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I'm just saying that her versus Lamb is like two characters that really add to the story.
And it's funny, I feel like that when I was watching it, there's a version of this movie without the unthawing Stallone and Simon Phoenix, where Dennis Leary's character is the main character, and it's like an uprising against this utopian society. Just that alone would be a cool movie. Like the off-screen movies that are going on in this movie are crazy. There's like so much off-screen movie.
Well,
I didn't write that on the list.
It's not only Stallone being thrown into the future; it's him being thrown into, because this movie could just be Simon Phoenix is awoken and he has to stop it.
Yeah.
The underclass system part of it, there's a version of the script without that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it's not as good.
It's not as good.
Yeah.
But there is a version of that movie. But like the fact that the movie's thoughtful enough and filled with has enough heft to include that.
Yeah.
He's thrown into this whole political scam and war and everything. Like he's
just a cog in the machine.
He's a cog in the machine. What I'm saying is he's discovering the world.
Yeah.
And all of its corruption. It's not just I'm in a utopia now and I've got to figure out how to fix it.
Yeah.
He's not Marty McFly like just thrown into the future. And he's
even though I do think this shares a lot with Back to the Future, which I didn't expect.
Right.
Yeah.
But like it's not Back to the Future 2, whereas in Back to the Future 2 nothing is like corrupt about the world.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like that world is actually it is on the surface of what it is in the movie. Whereas this is like there's a dark thing, there's something dark going on here. Yeah.
Amidst all the utopia.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm trying to put it in words, probably. Sorry.
You're doing a good job.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, we want to move on, or do you have anything else?
No,
on
I
tone?
just was talking about. I'm still talking about the premise delivery. I mean, this movie is one long trailer. Like I think we did good. I think we covered enough.
I thought a lot of the whiteboard stuff also was. Let's think of an action movie from the 90s and then add future tech in to make it more interesting and stuff. You know, like a car chase and everything.
I wanted to talk about your idea of premise delivery folding in on itself.
Yes.
You wanted to go on that because there's a great example of that with the car chase with him using the old car on the new road system against the new cars.
Yeah, you even mentioned it. I think you said like heroes using their old tech as opposed to the new tech.
Right. There's this thing we've been noticing it. I've been noticing it since you brought it up to me.
It's like you have to think of both. So in the fish out of water scenario, there's also this sense that you have to look at it from the other side. You have to look at it from the side of the water as opposed to the fish.
Sorry, I keep pointing at Jamie, talking to the microphone.
In this case, it's truly so. the unique thing is that he can use an old car. That's a thing that they don't see in this world. So the world, it's like, whoa, what is, how did somebody use that thing? This is new to us. Almost.
Right. It's like in the first half of this, it's very similar to the Bill and Ted's, like in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. They are in the past, dealing with all the craziness that comes along with two people being men out of time in the past, and then the premise folds in on itself, and suddenly all the people from the past are in the future, and they're dealing with all the trials and tribulations of people out of time living in the future. So this sort of does the exact same thing. The first half of all the discovery is John Spartan dealing with all the futuristic scenarios and trying to acclimate himself to it. And then the second half is him using all of his old stuff to kick ass in the new world.
And there's also a little bit of folding too, is like when he discovers the underground world, that's his world.
Right.
Like him eating a rat burger and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Best burger I've had in years.
But he's comfortable. Like it's Huxley and the other cop. I forget his name.
I can't remember his name.
It's them experiencing like, oh, this is what the 20th century was.
Right.
A little bit worse. Than
I mean, it's pretty close.
It's pretty bad. It's pretty close probably now. But yeah, like that's the premise reversing itself temporarily.
Yeah.
Like here's what I used to come from. Here's a car. There's people actually, making contact with other human beings,
right?
Eating meat, cursing,
that's
fucking, all that stuff, right?
Yeah. So we're seeing the old world.
We're seeing the remnants of John Spartan's world.
But it's a really instructive thing that I've noticed since we started really looking at that, and it comes up in every one of these movies that has excellent premise delivery. The premise always sort of like reverses itself, and I just thought it was worth. The car chase specifically is like a perfect example of that.
Yeah. How those cars can't hold a candle to that.
Yeah, the old one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this movie also probably has, though I'm trying to identify it in my head, you probably said some theme whiteboard stuff, because it is. This movie definitely
we can hop
has.
around and get into the theme.
That's what I was trying to write at the bottom of the outline. I just do stuff at the bottom.
We can go into theme, and then
because the themes they could be arguably great or arguably kind of a bad message.
That's what I wanted to talk about. Is it a good theme?
I think there's plenty to discuss with the movie, because I think there's good and bad here.
Yeah,
there's some bad ones though.
What do you seem like you had your fingers on the pulse of what you think this movie's about?
Well, obviously, the utopian society is shown to be. There's parts of it that are great. I mean, there's no crime. Everything's clean. Everyone's healthy,
and that's nice.
It looks like there's universal health care and like all this stuff. But obviously, there's this. It's like, that's all good. We could be as good as these people. Then, the plot is that, but you have to oppress half the population underground and forget they even exist and treat them as scum to achieve this. What does that say? I don't know if I'm smart enough to completely dissect what that's saying, but it doesn't seem great.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem great. It's almost like, it's almost saying like, I don't want to use any modern terms, but I know anyone's thinking it. It's saying like, this is socialism, and look at the price of socialism.
Right.
I think it does have a bit of a libertarian streak.
It's definitely libertarian.
However, I think
its heart's in the right place.
But
it's a libertarian.
I think it basically says you can have your utopia, but within reason. Everything can't be perfect.
You got to break a few eggs.
Yeah,
you have to.
Everything can't be perfect. Maybe back off the throttle of your utopia just a little bit. Allow for some imperfection.
I think even Sly's character, though, like if there were a Demolition Man 2, it would be like he would be like there has to be some between world of the 20th century and what you've achieved. There has to be a medium here, because all or nothing, both ways didn't work. It has to be. I'd hope that would be where it would go, but this seems like it's like an anti.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff people around this table probably believe in. It's saying like, if you did all that, people are going to suffer. You know what I mean? Like,
it's very a masculine. Might makes right.
It's also got this. Everybody's a bunch of wussies now.
Right.
Nobody can handle anything. A bunch of modern language snowflakes.
Yeah.
What's funny is, back in the 90s, that probably just nobody cared.
Nobody cared. Nobody thought of that. Nobody thought of that.
This same movie came out
This is 93.
It would be a lot of think pieces and articles.
That's what I wanted to ask you guys. This would be the toxic masculinity.
The toxic masculinity is the second thing I would talk about, because it's obviously like what saves the day in this movie.
Absolutely.
What could
it is in favor of masculinity. Like,
what I see is they created a world where that couldn't handle a single bump in the road. Like, yeah, this society is great, but
everybody
whether
gets a trophy.
Whether it be Simon Phoenix or a tornado or something, or like a resource running out, the people in this world cannot handle anything.
Yeah, I mean, there's that great little moment where before Simon starts using the computer, there's a guy just staring at the screen. He's like, I don't feel special. And the computer screen's like, you are special. You are a joy. You bring joy, and happy.
Which I think to some degree would really speak to people that I don't like on the internet.
Yeah, me too.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, they would see that as a commentary on something, and I'd be like, I don't, and I know the person that would like that, I would hate their views on the world.
Yeah.
So there's that part, but like Jamie said, it's 93. Nobody was
thinking about that, but it does feel like that's what's.
But on the flip side, I would say this
is
movie,
a hard one to talk
this
about.
This movie has a conflicted message.
It does.
I think so too.
Yeah,
then there's even that spot because I feel like this is a bit of an arc of awesome.
It's saying violence is bad.
Arc of awesome. Oh.
Yeah, I think this is a bit of an arc of awesome that he changes the world a little bit.
Yeah, that's
his old-fashioned ways come in. And, and now Sandra Bullock's actually going to kiss a guy and exchange bodily fluids.
Right.
Yeah.
I think he shows that the world that the old ways aren't horrible, but they can mesh with the new ways, and you could get a little bit of
I was saying, dude, like the halfway.
You're saying he's the
halfway because actually the surprising part of the movie is, and I'm not sure if
Stallone is a Republican, by the way.
Yeah,
that's not dance around that, but that doesn't matter.
Stallone makes the speech, that stuff was never good. Or whatever.
Yeah, no, there's I
people got hurt.
I think that I've got there's like three thematic statements in there. He says she's praising him for his fighting. Right. He just beat somebody up, and he says he says hurting people's not a good thing.
Right.
Not when it's a bunch of people looking for something to eat. And then later in the movie,
that kind of negates the first thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then later in the movie, the doctor says to him, "Not everyone is as eager as you to resort to violence to solve all the difficulties in the world." Mm-hmm. And then Huxley in the end says, I mean, and this is like the lesson, right? She says, "I now understand that under certain circumstances, violence is necessary." And I think that's what this movie is trying to say. She kills somebody, two 90s criminals attack her.
Totally right.
She finally uses physical violence and shoots the guy killing him, and then says, well, now I understand that sometimes violence is necessary.
Which I don't even think that is that completely like an even like leftist thing to say? Like, I mean, you bring in certain things in life and everyone's for violence.
Right.
You say the word Nazis, and suddenly things change in people's minds.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there is a time for that.
It feels like...
I know. I'm sorry, Jamie. I didn't mean to go there.
I know what you're saying, though. But it's kind of like... I mean, this is almost a joke, but it's everything in moderation.
Right.
Even violence. Even Rambo.
Right.
You're totally right.
That's the moral of the story.
As far as like it feels like there must have been, and we don't remember what's going on in 1992, 93 with the MPA.
No, we don't.
So it feels like there must have been some massive outcry against violent movies, and this movie is coming out and saying, "See, you tried to get rid of us, but we're still here because sometimes
the 90s were slightly more woke than the 80s.
Some violence."
Imagine like how much the step of the wokeness level of the 90s versus the 80s
Jesus
was.
Christ.
And that's what this movie's sort of responding to?
Yeah, it is.
Imagine making the Demolition Man in 2020.
Yeah.
Like,
we
oh
were
my
saying,
gosh.
Yeah,
like the amount of comedy. You couldn't,
Yeah, this will be like Clint Eastwood's Demolition Man.
If I had something to praise the movie about, it would be the thing that Stallone said about violence not being good, because his character generally feels like he doesn't want to be doing this.
Yeah,
if I had
an interesting
I don't
change.
think he relishes any of this.
No, and they kind of
even in the opening, I don't think he's enjoying it.
I think the opening does a good job showing his dismay about.
He doesn't want to be the Demolition
Man. Right.
He has to do it because Phoenix is a cancer that he has to kill.
But they do say to him, they go that police officer, like, they make it clear that he is constantly destroying everything in his path in his efforts to get Simon.
Right.
That, like, you're being excessive about.
I'm not saying that Spartan is right. It's just I don't think it's he's not glorifying any of this.
Well, it's
so,
it's a strange,
right?
Yeah.
It's a strange beat, but I sort of get it. I think it's kind of like saying like this myth of violence that she has from the movies and interesting
Is
things
wrong.
isn't the same thing as real violence. Real violence hurts
Right.
people. It was never right.
Yeah.
You know,
But it's weird in a movie where people are killing everyone for the sake. Yeah.
It contradicts the end message, and
right.
It's, kind of, I
fucking
don't
messy.
know. It's
yeah.
a weird
It
thing.
doesn't achieve what it's
honestly,
trying to
guys,
do.
I mean, I think the inclusion of Dennis Leary as
Well,
that
I was
guy,
gonna say,
his whole ethos is this movie.
I-
Weirdly, he hates this movie, but
Really?
he thinks it's bad because
I
Leary is a terrible critic.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Dennis
Yeah.
Leary, who gives a shit.
I can't,
his
I can't see him
ethos-
liking any movie, to be honest, because he
But,
can't
you know,
rant
like,
about it.
His stand up
Yeah.
his stand up was like about he's like a libertarian
Yeah.
freedom. Like, I'm gonna drive a giant pickup truck and suck down cheeseburgers because we
Right.
got the fucking bombs.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
yeah.
that his is
Right.
full freedom.
That's
Yeah.
what I was
To the
going to
thing.
say. He probably gives the whiteboard speech in this movie.
Mhm.
yeah.
I didn't pay attention to it enough on this rewatch to know what it was.
Here's
but I
the
bet
speech.
you it's, in
It's
there.
literally
He
from his
says-
act. It's
Okay.
literally
He says,
from his
Oh,
act.
really?
Deception.
Yes.
That's no plan. According to Cocteau's plan, I'm the enemy because I like to think. I like to read. I'm into the freedom of
Aha.
speech and freedom of choice.
Yes.
He says like I
You
want to be
live
naked.
up top. You live Cocteau's way. What he wants, how he wants, when he wants. Your other choice, come down here, and maybe you'll starve to death.
Yeah, and I shouldn't have said, by the way, I said whiteboard speech, but classroom speech.
The
is what I meant to
classroom.
say.
Go to
Okay.
the classroom.
Jamie,
speech.
I was wrong.
Yes,
that
that's-
speech,
Uh-huh.
that's the script. But there is a moment in the movie where he says like, maybe I want to be naked and covered in
That's
grease.
in the
and-
middle of that.
That's
I
in the
just
middle of
got
that.
to
But
the
that's-
crux
That's
of
his
it.
act.
That-
His
That
act.
does sound like the theme
Right.
of the movie from what we're saying.
Yeah,
you know, it's
sex
a very
and violence,
libertarian.
I've seen what the future is, and it's a 45-year-old virgin sitting in his house saying, "I'm an Oscar Mayer."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's Dennis Leary's
Yeah.
act right there.
Yeah.
That I mean, that could be the theme statement.
Yeah, no, you're right. It
It
could
could
be. I think there's multiple things that's
Yeah.
messy, but it's there, and I didn't expect it to be there. When I was watching this movie, I didn't expect to be like, "Oh shit, I gotta write that down." That's a statement of theme, and here's an
You also
opposition of
you
statement
just don't
of theme.
expect to be like
It
talking
was
about
there.
having like an actual like substantive conversation about Demolition Man.
No.
Like about the theme of Demolition Man. But
In a
it's- it
movie
is-
where they joke about Arnold Schwarzenegger being
Being
president,
president.
and every restaurant is Taco Bell, I did not
which
expect
I think
to be
is
talking about this.
isn't that like as far as a quip, everything we've talked about up until now with theme and how this is like a meta commentary on action movies, to have in this world the king of action movies was president.
Yeah.
I think that's like
yeah.
mind blowing
Yeah.
as far
Yeah,
as
in
like,
the utopian society.
the man who stands for cinematic violence above all humans.
Yeah. Was
Was
the
the
king
president.
of peace.
Right, the king of peace.
That's something.
Wow.
I didn't think about that. I do want to backtrack.
Demolition
to talk
Man
about
is a web of knowledge. Yeah, you need that
the
like
paradox.
we need that yarn connecting all the pieces of Demolition
Yeah.
Man, right?
You guys can't see it, but I was doing Charlie Day.
Yeah, Charlie Day. Right.
I
Cue the mid
want
theme.
to backtrack a little and talk about the weird first act structure.
Sure, yeah.
Because I think it's
Oh, yeah.
really weird. Like it opens, we open with this, because like, so here's the thing, and I think we can talk about it simultaneously, all right?
Okay.
Who's the protagonist, Spartan
Yeah.
or Huxley?
Yeah.
And knowing that Sandra Bullock's big thing didn't come until after that, that's very informative to me, and I didn't understand that, because I thought this was after Speed.
I think it's obviously Spartan.
Okay, but here's the thing.
Yeah.
So the first 11 minutes is a prologue with Simon and John, right? That's their, we see their before world.
Yeah.
Violence leads them to imprisonment. Then we see the next 10 minutes are 2032. There's no mention of John or Simon whatsoever. And it is 10 minutes of just Huxley. And it's like a prototypical Act 1 before world for Sandra Bullock's character, for Huxley, with no mention. Then all of a sudden, Simon is unfrozen, and it's basically about Simon. It's like 10 minutes of Simon taking over the causing havoc, and them trying to like follow him along. Then we get the next 5 minutes, 34 to 38. Then Spartan is unthawed, and it's all about Spartan, and like everybody else falls to the wayside. So it's like all this. We have 4 mini movies at the beginning with their own stars, and sort of like
Isn't that why it's such a good movie though?
it's
world
weird
build.
though.
It's weird. I'm not saying it's not, but it's
no. I'm surprised it
built,
works.
It
is
built
what I'm
her,
saying.
It took time to build the past, her character,
Yeah.
Simon Phoenix, then the movie.
It's very unconventional.
When he's unthawed, when Spartan's unthawed, then the movie we've been advertised starts. Right.
That's the lock
right.
in. Yeah, the lock in is when they give Spartan the objective and they say hunt down. I'm asking Jamie, is this the lock in? Hunt down Simon or be
I
put
think
back?
So. That's the movie you came to see.
Right, like you just said.
That's the trailer.
That's
the
38
trailer.
minutes.
Here's what I'd ask though. If you lopped off the prologue, does it become more normal?
Yeah.
Does it feel more normal?
Yeah.
I mean,
Even though you don't
what they
start with
originally
it.
had,
Because
basically.
Sandra Bullock is sort of driving.
I think
She's only driving the ship, the story ship.
Mhm.
Her actions are only forcing everything else to happen for those first 20 minutes.
Here's the other question.
Speed 2.
How does Austin Powers do it? Does it
Yeah.
have a long prologue?
It starts in the 60s.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, and then
so it starts with the prologue.
No,
Yeah,
that's why I'm sorry. That's why I thought
I wonder
it was
if
worthy
it's structurally the same.
No,
I'm
to
just
interrupt you
curious.
guys, like that's why I thought it was structurally like to interrupt you guys worth it because I was like, wait, Austin Powers does start with the two of them in the 60s fighting, and then Dr. Evil gets away. I mean, this one he gets away and freezes himself,
Okay.
so that's
Yeah.
slightly different.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean. And then Austin Powers chooses to have himself frozen,
Okay.
Mhm, mhm.
but
Yes.
it's still, but structurally, they fight in the 60s. They're frozen, and then Dr. Evil comes back in the 90s, and the only person who can stop him.
Right. Yeah.
But but the '90s is given that moment of like we learn what's going on
Yeah.
in the '90s, where the people, where we learn about. Gosh, I can't believe I can't think of her name.
Beyonce? I don't know. Is
No,
she
that's
in that?
three. You're
That's
thinking
three.
of three.
I don't even remember.
I'm just strictly talking about one, the first movie.
Oh, the
Uh,
fembots and all that.
What's her name? Why can't I think of it? I should know this stuff.
I don't remember.
Elizabeth Hurley.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Bedazzled.
I like
Very
Beyonce
instructive
better.
to the screenwriting listeners.
But
Elizabeth Hurley.
but now that I never realized
Yeah.
that Austin Powers was like
it works so well
It-
because it's spoofing Demolition Man.
Demolition.
Yeah, that's really.
I never realized it.
No, but it's really weird. It's like for the first 40 minutes, each one of them sort of gets their own 10 minutes.
So
yeah.
just, taking the prologue off, let me just walk. I'm just curious. Let's
Yeah.
walk through it. So it would start out with
The
them at a-
2032.
It would just start out
ordinary
in the
day of
future.
work.
Exactly. A violence-free future is what we see for 10 minutes.
Okay.
What life is like in a violence-free future.
We would see Dennis Leary spray painting the
Right.
sign and getting erased.
She contacts the prison and she's like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "Nothing's going on. There hasn't been crime forever. What do you think?" And she's like, "Is this going to stay like this forever? What I wouldn't give for some action."
So, but the funny
Future's
thing,
safe and boring.
the funny thing is, and speaks to your point,
Prototypical
it
protagonist.
feels like she is the protagonist in
Right.
that
Right.
movie.
No, totally.
Yeah, that's the weird thing about it.
But John. So you said that you think he's the protagonist, but he disappears for 24 minutes. How is he the hero if he disappears for
He's on the
24
poster.
minutes of the movie?
No, though in the new
That's
version,
so long.
Because I can't believe I'm saying this because it's so well written
Yeah.
but
that it needs to earn him coming
Holy
back.
shit. He
The-
disappears for a half an hour.
The movie needs to earn him coming back.
Yeah.
but in
And
the,
it builds to it.
in the prologue version, it does set him up as it shows what he's like and his problems, and it sets up his arc,
All
so to
his
speak.
problems. Yeah.
So in some ways
Even
it
his
works.
guilt.
It just
Even his
stretches it.
it's just
Yeah.
a dual protagonist.
Yeah,
then.
it's a strange.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's strange the way that works.
Yeah, because once Simon comes out, it's literally just her at a computer watching what he's doing, like following along. Oh, there's another murder, death, kill. Oh, there's another murder, death, kill. Oh, he just did this.
Yeah,
And-
because what would happen in the version without the prologue, if we were just doing this like as a
yeah,
breakdown of 3-act structure,
Right.
I would say bringing Stallone back is the break into 2.
right.
Like that's the new thing you're introducing to solve the problem that got started with the inciting incident of the first guy coming
right.
back.
So
it's
that
kinda-
would be normally at like 25 minutes,
Yeah,
27
yeah,
minutes.
yeah.
So
It's kinda
that
weird.
tracks really well. They just they added on this extra 10 minutes, and suddenly it's this weird.
and honestly, this is the weird.
But I'm glad it's there.
Me
Yeah.
too.
No,
I'm
I'm
so
glad
glad
it's
it's there.
there.
It's
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
honestly, what I always say about 3-act structure is it's sort of in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
Because if it feels like 3-act structure, which I think all this stuff does, then you're okay because things are moving forward. Like
Yeah.
3-act structure tends to just be a thing that prevents us from thinking things are standing still. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
One day we're going to do a Rocky episode, and I think that's going to be the huge
50-minute first act.
That's going to be the huge conversation.
So yeah, and I want to be clear what I'm trying to say here. I am
you don't
not
think
a
it's
stickler.
a problem. You're wondering.
Yeah, I'm not a stickler for it's got to happen at this point.
No,
in
of course.
I'm not at all. I actually think the opposite. I hate that, but I think there's merit to it, absolutely. But I think it's instructive that it works so well. Despite these
prototypical,
I mean, that the audience is like starved of Stallone.
They love it. 24 minutes without your hero, and it still works so well
because you've got really good world building going on in that time.
Yeah,
that's right.
Fascination,
as long as it's fun and things are moving.
Which I feel like during that time you could argue a lot of the premise delivery is even in that little because it's delivering.
Yeah, I wish I would have paid attention to the way that they they provided exposition because I think it's handled really well. And I didn't even think to track that.
One of the tricky things in books by gurus, like I remember I'm a big fan of Blake Snyder's books and Save the Cat, but the one thing
you're in one.
The one thing in Save the Cat goes to the movies, and he's not here to defend himself, but I think he picks some wrong movies. And then tries to fold them into the thing,
his model,
as opposed to just picking the best movies for his model.
For the model,
he should have picked Demolition Man.
He would have had a hard time. I think.
I mean, I love that the lock-in because I wanted to make sure you agreed with that.
Yeah.
That the lock-in is when they set him on the mission to get Simon Phoenix.
It's
38 minutes. That's awesome.
Yeah,
but it doesn't feel slow.
Not at all.
No,
and I think. Even in this podcast, we found a lot of movies that do stuff like that. That save the lock into 38 minutes, 40 minutes.
When you have all this world to set up and these characters and their problems, and you give them their due, you know what I mean? Like we get to spend time with Simon Phoenix. We get to spend time just with her.
And Simon Phoenix isn't exactly a three-dimensional character.
No,
not at all.
And that's intentional.
Yeah.
But you still get to know his
Him as
vibe,
a villain.
his vibe, right?
Yeah,
how villainous he actually is.
Yeah,
right,
this is a Joel Silver movie, so we kind of have a whammo board in place as well.
Yeah.
So the whammo comes in the opening, right? Then the whammo comes again once Wesley Snipes is unleashed, and then so we get. He's feeding us the action scenes,
the genre delivery,
delivery.
Yeah, that's good.
Every 10 minutes or so, at least.
Yeah. So I guess then we can open it up to talk about the protagonist thing, because John Spartan is the one who, for the most part, his actions drive the story forward.
Right.
His choices and the things he the things he does are what's like affecting the story. She's pretty much along for the ride for most of the story, except for in the first act. Like when she's like, we should get this guy and unthaw him. She's the one who sort of sets all that in motion. But after that, she's sort of along for the ride.
By the way, Lori Petty was originally cast in that role, but replaced after shooting some scenes.
For creative differences, which I thought was interesting.
Meaning they didn't like what she was doing.
Maybe she was just way taller than Stallone. And made him look.
Or she didn't want to. Maybe she didn't like the arc, the love of the arc.
Yeah, I mean, there's not. She's sort of like a child. You know, she's very much like.
But I
naive.
feel like
she's got. I call it the Pinocchio arc.
But no, I disagree. I think she's naive to the 20th century. But I think in her time, she's the one who I identify with because she understands. She kind of outside of everyone can see how boring and banal.
Yeah. That's true.
She's the only one that's
true.
like. Hey, this is kind of boring, guys. Like nothing is happening.
That's true, but she also glorifies in her mind. She doesn't. We can. I
agree with that too.
I think she's
the audience.
I think your arc of awesome thing is you put it perfectly. Yeah. He's got the Back to the Future arc. He's the one changing everybody, right? Like he's the one who everything he does, everybody's sort of like changed because of him, and he doesn't really change.
No.
Like he's the same guy. No. Maybe a little bit more advised, like, hey, maybe violence isn't as good. Like
but I think he already knew that.
They would have started like the police department would have started like the Spartan Initiative, where they would have him train a certain group of people to deal with things like this had they come along. You know what I mean? Like that's what I see.
Spartan.
Yeah, right. But they would have to because they'd be like, Simon Phoenix can always come up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But she's the one like Okay, like she's the one. It's like I think it's like the eyes open to the dark side of the world arc. It's the Bill and Ted gaining wisdom arc. She blindly follows orders. She doesn't think there's anything wrong with that or that she should ever need to. And by the end, she learns to question authority. She thinks her superiors are trustworthy and benevolent. She actually says the benevolent blah blah blah. She describes her leader as benevolent, and she learns they're devious. She thinks poor people are hostile and dangerous, and by the end, she learns they're peaceful and trustworthy. She thinks violence is exciting and fun, and she learns that it's not all fun and games like the movies say. She's scared to have physical contact and defend herself, and she learns to fight back, and she actually kills in self-defense. Her whole way of life and view, she learns is wrong. It's like a huge change. Like, that's why I argue that she's not smart. Like, I don't think she's smart at all. I think she's like a kid.
I think this is more of a question from me to you guys, though. Can't you have someone who has a huge arc and curve and learn a bunch of stuff and not be the protagonist, though? You can have that without them being...
Are there other examples of that?
I'm trying to think of another example, but...
Because she learns all the lessons. Like, I mean, that's
I think
usually the role of the hero.
I think Spartan learns a few. He doesn't have...
He just
He
learns
knows how to knit.
less.
in the new
He knows
world.
how to knit.
Yeah, now...
He doesn't
Hey.
have-
I don't know why I just made him at the
Honestly,
to be
too,
the Fonz.
if there's a bunch of diseases floating
I
around
always
that
do
he
Rodney
can't...
Dangerfield when I do Sylvester Stallone. Hey, what
Hey, how you doing?
Hey. I think it's a hey.
Yeah, the thing with the diseases always, because I was always like, I don't know if he should be pushing her to have physical contact sex if they got these gnarly diseases that you don't even know about.
Yeah.
Maybe you shouldn't be having.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lesson. I
Yeah.
don't know if you should be breaking.
Yeah, agreed.
That's not like about like how you live your life. That's like, dude, like what's
yeah,
going on?
Yeah,
You
you're
need
right.
the science of that
Yeah.
one. You know what I mean? But to what you're saying, I still think it's really obvious that he's the protagonist, and I totally agree. She learns more.
Yeah.
I don't think that makes somebody a protagonist, though.
Yeah, who drives the story forward is who should
Yes,
be the
the
and
story
he's
is
the one
hinged
who
on
drives
him.
the
Yeah,
story
I mean,
forward.
Marty McFly
Is
doesn't
it-
really change, but his father
I think the
changes.
miracle of Back to the
Yeah.
Future as a script is that Marty McFly stays the same as a person.
Yeah,
He's the same.
that's
But he
real.
changes
That's
the
the
world.
Forrest Gump arc too.
Yeah.
He changes the world around him, literally,
And
that he
Benjamin
goes back.
Button.
There's-
There's tons of examples
There
of that.
are a lot. There are
Yeah.
a lot. And even,
Yeah.
You
even
can say Lieutenant Dan
Yeah,
learned way more than Forrest
that's
ever
true.
did.
No,
so
I
there
was,
you go.
I was
don't know.
asking. I think it's a
Yeah.
good, instructive discussion that
You're-
she is the one who changes
The most.
and he is the one who's staying the same. And
Jimmy,
it
you
works.
could argue that the world learns more than John Spartan does
Yeah.
in this movie.
Yeah.
the world.
And the world is like, yeah,
Yeah.
everybody is almost learning what she's learning at the
Absolutely.
same time. So
Yeah,
John
Everybody's
Spartan's,
changed.
he's a protagonist, but his arc is not as dense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I think it's a good discussion.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah.
Okay. Tons of stuff. I'm sorry.
No.
I was like writing things down. Like
Jimmy
this
has
is
his
good.
usual stack of
Yeah.
papers, and me and Jamie are sitting here like, well, we said everything.
There's an awesome praise of the killer speech. You hinted at it.
Yep.
It's a 3-parter, which I don't think I've ever seen one of those before.
Wow.
It's the same monologue, but it takes it's spread out 10 minutes. He starts it, and then we go to something else, and he continues it. And he says it's Lamb, the guy who we saw him as a young guy flying the helicopter.
I'm gonna look
Right.
the actor up because it's killing me.
I love this guy.
He's
I
amazing.
He says tons of
He's
stuff.
tons of stuff. And I feel bad for knowing his
Yaphet
name.
Kotto.
They're
No, it's
asking-
not
I'm
him.
just kidding.
It's not him.
This is both about. It starts out about Simon Phoenix, and it curbs to in one line to talk about John Spartan.
Bill Cobbs.
They ask.
Bill Cobbs.
Okay, Bill
That's
Cobbs.
Bill Cobbs,
Bill Cobbs,
yeah.
you rock.
You rock. You're the best.
He says they're asking about Simon Phoenix.
The
They're
narrator of Hudsucker Proxy. Go ahead.
Oh shit,
That's who.
that's
yeah,
awesome.
That's who it is. Yeah.
Second time that's come up. Oh no, that was Hudson Hawk. Sorry.
Yeah, Hudson-
He says he's
Similar
talking
movies.
about, he says this is praise of the killer speech. Oh, we should probably introduce what that is for somebody who hasn't listened.
What,
to previous
Jamie, what is the
episodes.
praise of the killer speech?
This is a thing that Jimmy knows. No, but
Oh.
it's basically just a speech by some character that says how powerful, how evil, how devastating the killer is. So it kind of hypes. It's kind of the hype man.
tool to be the hype man for the villain.
It's the hype man for
right?
the villain.
And typically, it doesn't have to come from a character who's considered wise. But when it's coming from a character who's considered wise, it's sort of, we digest it more. We go like, oh, this guy. And Lamb, as you kind of explained, he's kind of like from the old world.
It's kind of tied into a half man.
Half
That's
man
what I'm saying.
thing.
Lamb has actually seen 20th century violence. Like he
knows.
sounds like he was a child when he saw it, but he knows.
He should be the guy teaching the Spartan Initiative.
Yeah.
Or he's the one that starts it or something, because he knows that
it's
come
kind
back.
of a storm is coming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he
I love his character, because he's like nonchalant.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, there's an old
like-
criminal coming back. I'm like, dude, you
Right.
should be freaked out
Yeah.
of your mind.
He's sort of like, it's going to be like the 90s again.
Like,
All right.
if you know who Simon Phoenix is, you should be scared.
Yeah. So he says, they ask him who's Simon Phoenix, and he's like, I knew him. We all knew him. He's evil, like you've only read about. And then they don't take him seriously, so he continues. He's like, no, you don't get it, Huxley. Phoenix isn't coded. He got chilled back in the 20th century before they started lowjacking everybody. I was a rookie then. He was a big dealer, narcotics, software, wetware, anything. Declared his own kingdom in South Central. He murdered, death, killed, whatever got in his way. In a bad time, he was the worst. That was the second part of it. And then a few minutes later, when they're talking about, well, what are we going to do? Then he says, he talks about John Spartan, and they were like, how did you stop him before? And he said, a 12-state manhunt, satellite surveillance, none of it worked. In the end, it took one man, one cop, John Spartan. Totally a trailer line, right? Like,
also, if there wasn't that prequel, there wasn't that first part, this could have filled that in a little bit.
yes.
If you didn't show the 20th century.
It's almost like Fred Decker read that monologue and was like, let's
gotta show
write,
that. We
let's
gotta show
write
a
that
scene.
prologue based on that monologue.
Right,
But
right.
it's a great praise of the killer speech. They work really well. So now the audience goes, oh shit.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
But
cool.
Also, it's kind of funny because he's giving this praise of the killer speech, but he's giving it to people who the killer wouldn't really need to be. I mean, any three of us could go into this world and almost be a supervillain.
it's true.
These people are terrible at
Yeah.
handling anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's giving it to a bunch of people who like.
Yeah.
Like, you can't.
Bob Rose used to steal Snickers from the
Right,
7-Eleven.
yeah, like and I-
in a bad time, he
Right.
was the worst.
Like give me like an axe, and I could probably at least kill like 20 people before they stop me. You know what I mean? Like they're not that good.
Right. Well,
So-
they don't even know. Remember one of my favorite moments in the whole movie is when the chief of police is like, I got it. This is how we're going to track him. We're going to wait till he commits a crime, and then we're going to go after him.
It's just a terrible thing, right?
Right.
Right.
And he's like, great plan.
It's a world without murder.
Yeah, without anything.
Yeah,
Without-
right.
Yeah,
Anything.
on the surface, underneath, probably stuff's going on. But we haven't talked about escalation in a while. Jamie, what's a good definition of escalation? Because I didn't write anything down.
Escalation, basically, it's how each set piece kind of keeps topping
Keeps
itself.
topping itself, and often this includes the reversal of the
Yeah,
premise.
so I always think of
folding in on
fireworks.
itself.
You know,
Also,
you always
yeah,
want
it's
the
usually
grand
The
involved,
finale.
fireworks is perfect.
Yeah.
It's like you start out with like 2 or 3,
Yeah,
and then
it starts.
and then there's more and more and more and more,
Yeah,
and then you.
It doesn't
you,
also
the whole
involve like a ticking clock to get to or anything. That's not-
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes, but this has a great example of escalation. Like in Men in Black, it was like they were in the beginning. It starts with and them trying to stop an illegal alien from crossing the border, like the U.S.-Mexico border, and then it ends with them trying to
stop a
an
giant
illegal
bug
giant
leaving the
bug
planet,
leaving
yeah.
the planet, right?
Right.
So this
a mirror.
one's sort of like in the same vein, which is why it was funny to hear that they added the beginning. So in the beginning, it starts with a fight scene in a burning building with Simon baiting Spartan into a puddle of gasoline that Simon then sets on fire. It ends in a fight scene in a cryo prison surrounded by ice with Simon baiting with Spartan baiting Simon into a puddle of cryo ice.
It's a perfect inverse.
It's a perfect yes, and
God,
I had
this
it,
movie is so
I
good,
hadn't
man. It's
noticed
so
that,
good.
man, and that's so fucking good,
It's
man.
so good. Yeah.
The interesting thing, the cryo freeze is total whiteboard material
Absolutely.
too.
Yeah,
let's,
total.
Let's use cryo freeze in an action scene.
Let's see what we could do. How much fun we.
So
could
there's a
have
little
with that.
tiny particle that will freeze anything instantly. Okay.
What can we do with that?
What can we do with it?
Yeah. So
that's him-
that's
that's
just a great piece of writing right there.
John Spartan is using
For
the
sure.
particle as the cigarette.
It's
and he's
exactly
standing in water.
the same. It's perfect.
Perfect. Yeah.
And there's a couple really good rule of threes, and this is pretty much all I got. He corrects her pop culture mess ups twice, and both times he's really embarrassed by what she's saying. The third time she messes up in front of him, he says, "Take this job and shovel it, huh?" That's close enough.
That's close
right?
enough.
That's a rule. That's the third one.
That's that halfway agreement.
Yeah.
Halfway 20th century to utopia.
That's true. Hey, that's true.
Yeah,
There's
that's
a
the-
lot of that.
that's him going like, all right. I'll take half of it.
Simon tries to kill Dr. Cocteau twice. Both times he points a gun at his face. He can't do it. Third time, he just tosses the gun to one of the other 90s criminals that he just unfrozen. Bam, kills him. But it wouldn't be as impactful if we didn't see those first two versions of that scenario.
Right.
The other one that I noticed is Huxley twice tells John that she's impressed with his skills after he displays violence. And then when she beats up the guy that's trying to kill her and then shoots the guy that's trying to kill him, he says, "I'm impressed."
Mhm.
Like, so it's a nice reversal. That's
Right,
another rule of
right.
three. There's a lot of techniques in this
In this
movie. Why
movie.
we like it.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I don't think anyone would ever give it enough credit.
That's what I'm saying. I didn't expect it.
yeah, I don't think-
I was kind of
we
just
didn't even give it
expecting to
credit.
laugh at
Mhm.
dumb shit.
Right.
We didn't give it credit, and I love this movie, and I
Yeah.
didn't give it credit for what I expected when I rewatched it for this.
Yeah. Agreed.
I did not expect to find anything.
No. What did you learn? This is a good discussion, good segue into what did you learn?
Yeah.
By the way, the screenplay is online for this one as well. I didn't dive into it, but it is online. If anybody wants to check it out, you can just Google it. You'll
Yeah,
see.
pretty
It's in a
easy to
bunch of-
find.
Yeah,
I
After you Google 3 seashells and how they work, look up
that's
the-
right.
Yeah,
I learned about the 3 seashells. So I'll go a little off topic like that. I learned something new. There was a sequel pitched for this movie.
Yep.
Did you hear about this?
Whoa.
I read about it.
So
yeah.
it was. I mean, it sounds like one of these pitches that is ridiculous. Like it would have never happened. But Joel Silver said his pitch for the sequel was that Stallone's daughter would have grown up and been older than him or at his age, and it would be played by Meryl Streep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
really weird. Super
That-
weird.
that's-
Then what?
That's all there is to this.
There's
That's
also, did you read?
I know Meryl Streep.
So
Yeah,
let me
weird.
give her this movie.
if you got there, I read another thing about that was actually filmed is that there is a subplot in this movie where Stallone's daughter lives among the Dennis Leary homeless people.
That would be so great.
The actress who was originally playing his daughter, it was all her parts were edited out except one moment where she says like one line. But that is what was originally supposed to be his daughter, who was, and that would have driven his impetus to fix this world even more.
Yeah, I
But
would have
they-
loved that.
But they edited it out for some reason.
Man.
It didn't work. It wasn't working.
Okay, because they would probably be like, "Why isn't he spending more time with her?
It was,
Why is he just walking away?"
I think it's a good thing. I think
think
it
it's
would
a
have
good cut,
distracted
yeah.
from the movie. You know,
Yeah.
it's better that everyone he loves is dead.
Yeah,
It's just better that way.
Yeah.
It's clean.
it's cleaner.
It's clean.
Yeah.
So I learned that new outside of the podcast.
Go ahead.
I learned
Yeah.
that there was like, it was trying to say something, which I mean, above all the things that I took away when I was like watching this, looking for instructive things to talk about, I was shocked that there was some sort of theme being thrown around.
Yeah.
And it was like a heavy theme, you know, like, and I just
One I'm not sure I agree with.
I
even.
don't know that I agree with it
right,
either,
yeah.
but I just didn't expect to get that sort of like, you know, heft from this movie.
I mean, I'll say two things. One is the Austin Powers thing, which I feel like a complete moron for never putting those two together. Secondly, I just don't think I've ever given this movie enough credit for being a meta commentary.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I came to while watching it for this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
In how it's almost 30 years old now.
Yeah.
I
Wow.
have seen this movie countless times. I own
Mhm.
this movie in every format. And I've never really I never gave it the credit to
Yeah.
be as smart as I now realize it is.
Yeah.
And so I learned that it's just a truly smart movie.
Oddly.
And I think that's what keeps it going with the culture. Like, people still love this movie. Our poll was straight up Demolition Man.
Yeah.
People love this movie, and I don't think anyone wants to put it under a microscope and say, you know what? It's pretty good.
It's pretty fucking
It's a
good.
pretty good fucking.
Yeah.
No, they want to be like, it's silly. it's silly and bad. It's so bad it's good. Like, no,
Nah.
it's pretty legitimately good, actually.
Except for the toxic masculinity aspect.
There's the themes that could be
Yeah.
argued and stuff, but like
but
I think you see that.
construction-wise, it's like
from a craft
standpoint.
I think you see the poster, and it's the two faces and the
Yeah.
blonde hair Wesley Snipes, and you think, oh, it's Dennis Rodman versus
Yeah,
Jean-Claude Van Damme again.
Dennis Rodman got his hairstyle from this movie.
That's
So
awesome.
he literally did. So yeah. But yeah, I just think that it'd be
Yeah.
nice if anyone listening give this movie a second shot.
Yeah.
If us talking about it hasn't like inspired you to watch it again
Yeah.
with different eyes, but like
Yeah.
it's worthy. It's worthy of some praise. Anyway, is that it, guys? You had
That's
anything
it.
left?
Yeah.
That's it.
That's
Okay.
it. All right. Thanks for listening, guys.
Until next time. Oh wait, we have an email.
Oh yeah. If
Oh,
you
we're
got
supposed to do
comments,
that,
We
yeah.
never do that.
We never
Everybody
do that.
just
If you got
turned off.
comments, we've gotten like 2 emails in the history of this email address. So it's writersblockbusterspodcast@gmail.com. So if you've got
And
comments,
as always, you can direct message us or tweet us on Twitter and everything. So thank you everybody for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Good journey or whatever, right? That's what they say. All right, bye.
Be well.
Be well. Be well.
You have just listened to Writers Blockbusters, a screenwriting podcast featuring 2 professionals and another guy. Available only on Thundergrunt.